In the music business, it's the business that keeps the music alive. Today, we don't have the nobility or the church supporting musicians the way they did in the past. So how did musicians and their organizations survive in today's world? Let's find out in conversation with someone who is actually in the music business. I'm Roxanne Jansen. Welcome to Music Business Artistry. Today, we're pleased to have Elaine Ryan, a singer-songwriter and the founder of Hooplays. So first, Elaine, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
I'm excited to hear all about your music business first.
Yeah.
You're a singer-songwriter and you're from the country of Canada.
That's right.
So were you born there?
No, I was born in Ireland. We immigrated when I was 5.
You're 5. So your parents are Irish? Or?
They're Irish, yeah, Irish-Canadian, and then I was raised in Vancouver, BC.
Okay,
yeah.
So a West Coaster.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, a West Coaster.
That's right, yeah.
I know, it took me a second. So tell me how you got started in the music business.
Well, when I was 22, a friend of mine asked me if I wanted to be part of a fundraiser show, and I thought, okay, well, everyone else who's part of this show is going to write a song or is kind of like an original musician. Mm-hmm. You know, I had been singing for a long time then, and I thought, well, maybe I'll, try my hand at writing a song, and I wrote one, and, I realized it wasn't magic. It was something that I could do, and then I played that show and kind of decided from there, like, hey, this is something I want to get into, and wrote more songs and played more shows, and that's how it started.
Good. So your main instrument is guitar, right?
Mm-hmm.
And voice.
Yeah.
Great. So you started off in Vancouver. I understand that you've done some touring?
I have, yeah. I've done a good bit of touring in Canada, in British Columbia and Alberta, and then I did one cross-Canada tour. I drove all the way, with a friend, we drove all the way to Montreal, which is many days driving. Montreal is just north of Buffalo, New York.
Yeah.
So it would be like driving from Seattle to Buffalo.
Yeah,
and back.
Thousands of miles.
Yeah.
And you've got some very tall mountains in between.
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
But they're gorgeous.
And one long road.
Yes.
Yeah.
So how did you get that tour started?
Well, basically, I didn't know at the time how to go on tour, but there was all these musicians and bands around me who were pulling it off somehow, and so I just decided to give it a shot. Me and this other girl, Melissa Bandura, thought, well, how are we going to do this? And we went and thought about who we knew all across Canada, and she had some relatives. I had a couple friends. And then in between where we didn't know people, we just tried to find venues that offered accommodation. Mm-hmm. So it was basically booking small venues all across Canada, and we always asked if they could provide a meal or if they could provide accommodation. And I don't think we ever stayed in a hotel the whole time, because there was always somebody who knew somebody who had a cousin who lived in Medicine Hat. Yeah.
And that's the way a lot of bands do it.
Yeah.
And that's the way. So quite often the public thinks that you just get an agent and all this stuff happens for you.
Right.
But that's a rare occurrence, really, right?
Yeah, I think that's kind of the kind of old thinking. Like, maybe that's how it went down in the 80s or 90s. There's kind of like this dichotomy where back before Napster, before like the stealing of music, basically, which has become, de rigueur now. But before that happened, it was like the big bands were the ones who got to go on tour. There was a select number of large bands who had agents and were able to go on tour. Mm-hmm. And now there are many, many, many more artists who go and pursue music, and there's just not, that many agents out there. And there's also just not the same kind of money in music, in recorded music, as there used to be. So you really have to go out there and do it yourself. Yeah.
And so you contacted the places directly yourself via email and phone calls?
Look it up online. Basically, one of the main things I did is I would go to the different towns. Like, I would search out the different towns and search singer-songwriter in that town. Mm-hmm. And see where those singer-songwriters were playing. So, like, what are the venues that the local musicians are playing in, the local musicians who sound like me, of my genre, and then go and send an email to that venue, and then, give it a couple days, and then, send a follow-up email or maybe a follow-up phone call. Just be polite but persistent, and, not everyone gets back to you, but enough people do, and And that's how it happens, yeah.
It sounds exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you went with a friend on who was also a musician, you said?
Yeah, for the Cross Canada one. And then for one that I did in BC and Alberta, I went with 2 other female musicians who I met through this online contest to see. It was like a contest to see if you could play at Lilith Fair. And we were all in the top 5. Like, none of us won the top slot, but you know, we were like, well, let's make something out of this. So,
good.
So we got together and we planned this BC Alberta tour. And one girl, Aspen Swisser, her parents lent us, you know, their Toyota Tercel, tiny little Toyota Tercel, and we had this big roof rack that we strapped on top, and you know, packed all the guitars and all the luggage in, and drove around BC and Alberta, playing shows and playing house concerts, and it was great. Yeah.
So were there any surprises to you as you were doing this?
Oh, the surprises. I don't know. I mean, it's very, like, in terms of like which shows paid, it's very touch and go. And sometimes the small towns were the ones where, you know, people would really come out and support, and you'd actually end up getting paid well for your performance. Because in Canada, in the United States, it's almost like there aren't that many small towns. There's so many people that every town has quite a few people. But I'm sure there are small towns.
I know.
You know, in between the big towns.
You haven't found them yet, but
No.
I'll hope you find some.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of really tiny towns in Canada, and those folks, like, there's not a lot of people going through, and so if something's happening on Saturday night, they come out.
Yeah.
So that was really cool, you know.
Yeah.
And maybe like country folk have like longer attention spans and are able to sit and listen attentively to your folk song, you know.
Yeah. So tell me about the type of music you do.
So I mean, I think every musician you talk to, you know, resists being put into,
you don't want to be labeled
a box, right? But I mean, I'm a singer-songwriter. I play with a guitar, and so it really depends on how you take that song and produce it as to whether it becomes pop music or, you know, folk music but folk and R&B are the 2 influences, or soul are the 2 influences that I think are strongest for me, and they're not super similar. Yeah. So yeah, singer-songwriter with folk and R&B influences is kind of my thing.
And so as we were talking before the show, you've done quite a bit of performing, not just in Canada and across all of Canada, but you've also performed in Hawaii.
Yeah.
How did you get to Hawaii? How did that happen?
I married a surfer.
Oh, good idea.
Yeah. And so then I was in Hawaii for full time for 6 years. And, you know, I needed to make a living. And one of the things I know how to do is sing and play the guitar. So I played in hotels and resorts and bars 4 nights a week, like regularly for that whole time. And yeah, that was a job, you know, that was something that I could earn a living at. It was the commerce side of it, you know. But I'm really glad to be back here, because there's just more opportunity for me to actually have people listen to my own original songs and to pursue that side of it. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like an interesting life. And so what brought you then to California?
Basically, I was pushing to come to California because I wanted more space for my original music, and because I have, you know, as we'll talk about later, I guess, I have this website that helps people find live music, and I wanted to be on the mainland, as they call it in Hawaii, where there's, you know, cities. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you came. So, you know, there's more variety in this area, and anytime anybody new comes to the area, I think it's exciting. So.
Yeah, this is a great place. I mean, it's, you know, there's a lot of there's San Jose and there's San Francisco. There's, you know, there's so much happening. The weather is fantastic. I don't know if people who like grew up here realize how amazing the weather is here. I mean, I came from Hawaii, which, you know, a lot of people are like, oh my God, the weather, right? But Hawaii is really hot. Yeah. It's like you're wearing shorts and flip-flops all the time, which is nice. But sometimes you want to wear your boots, you know? Like, it's nice to have, I like the seasons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like the seasons too.
Yeah.
But but I'm not sure I'm ready for for Canadian winters.
Yeah.
I think Canadian winters are a lot of fun for a week.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Vancouver winters are more like, they'd be like Seattle winters. So Vancouver winters are hard because of the never-ending gray and rain.
Yeah.
But then the rest of Canada, it's just like I lived in Montreal for, half a year, and it would be kind of like you go outside and your eyelashes would, your eyelashes would stick together. And
Yeah, I was in minus 44 once and decided.
And you kind of wonder, people emigrated here, a few hundred years ago, and they decided to stay in this place,
And before all the specialty clothing and such.
And before central heating. Yeah.
It's kind of amazing.
Yeah.
But impressive.
Yeah.
It's very impressive.
Yeah.
So here in the Bay Area, you're just kind of getting your feelers out, right? You've been here just a few months, really, about 6 months. And trying to find new venues to perform in. I understand that one of the things that musicians are quite often labeled as, this type of singer, that type of singer. And so it's difficult to, it's sometimes difficult to find work in the exact area that you want and all. But you do quite a number of things. I mean, you've performed in bars and such, but you've also done weddings. Is that one of your specialties?
So I mean, here, how I earn my living here mainly is weddings, birthday parties, basically one-off events. And where someone says, I want you to learn this special song, it's my husband's favorite song, and you learn that song and you sing that song, and what other cover songs that they're interested in. They're hiring you for your musicianship, not your songcraft, basically.
Right.
So I guess it's like I was listening to this podcast the other day, and there was an actor, and he was talking about, how in the movie business they often say, you do one for them and one for you. You do the cheesy action movie, and then you go and do a Shakespeare play. If that's your bag. Yeah. I think it's a similar thing. For musicians who decide to do music full time, as you do, some is sort of commercial and some is artistic. Yeah.
Right, and trying to find the balance is sometimes interesting. So
I mean, there are. I think that if your passion is for pop music and a certain type of pop, and you want to be in a band, then you can you can focus on breaking out and making a living in pop specifically. If you're more folk, or if you're jazz or blues, it's a bit different. You can have to mix and match.
Yeah. So I find it interesting, in the Bay Area there are a lot of venues that have live music and just getting on their rotation. So you also have CDs, right?
I do, yeah.
So I'm curious, percentage-wise, do you make more money with the, what am I trying to say, the bar or the venue paying you directly, or do you make more money with CD sales?
Definitely with it's with the venue paying you, right?
Okay.
Except, that's a hard question to answer because of changing technology. So when I was touring across Canada, CD sales were a big extra bonus, you'd maybe 30% of what you were earning was CD sales, which is a good chunk. And then over the years, it's just been a slow trickle of nobody buying the CDs.
Yeah.
In Hawaii, it worked because people were kind of looking for a souvenir to take home. So they'd, come and see my show. They'd see I sold CDs, and then I would, be able to sell CDs, and that was great. But I think there's all these streaming services, and my laptop doesn't even have a CD drive, right?
Okay. Yeah.
My car has one, and that's it.
I run into the same problem.
Yeah.
So besides selling CDs and doing the shows, I understand that you've put together a video. We would like to see that video here. And would you like to set it up a little bit and tell us about it before it starts?
Sure, yeah. So I had this album, my most recent album is called Sunsets and Twilights. One of the songs on the album I had written about Maui. It's called When the Wind Blows Kona. And it was a very surf pop kind of a song. And I ran into this guy on Maui who had won an Emmy Award for this golf show that he'd produced. His name's Jess Craven. And, you know, I asked him if he'd be interested in working with me on a music video, and he was. You know, he had time and he was interested. He liked the song. So we went out and we shot. It's like a postcard for Maui. Like, we went out and shot a whole bunch of different scenes, and this lovely couple helped us out with it. Actually, the girl who's in the video, her name is Lily Miola. She's an incredible singer-songwriter herself, who has toured with Willie Nelson. So yeah, she's pretty cool. Anyway, the video is like, it's like a surf pop video, and it's a lot of fun.
Okay, well, let's watch.
Okay, you're back over.
That was great. I really enjoyed it. I have to admit, I enjoyed the surfing as much as everything else.
It's fun, right? Yeah.
I surfed years ago, but my skills are, I don't even try it anymore.
Yeah.
I let the rest of my family members do it, who are good at it.
Yeah, I'm definitely the fair weather, very large board, very small wave type of surfer.
Or as my family jokes, I'm on the floating sidewalk. Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, well, yeah, but that was a great video. So tell me, I understand there's something else. As you were trying to find other live music and trying to let people find your live music, you came up with an idea.
Yeah.
Tell us about it.
So I was touring in California. I was in Maui, and I decided, you know, I'll plan like a West Coast tour of the United States, because, you know, up until then I'd been touring in Canada, and then finally I was legal to work in the US, and I thought, why don't I try to book a tour? And so I did the sort of same plan as I did in Canada, booked coffee shops. There was a girl, Sabrina Barron, who was a friend of mine on Maui, and she had some family members in California, and she's also a singer-songwriter, so we booked it together. And then it was kind of like, it was disheartening because I didn't really know anyone. I didn't have like a following in California. And so I would go to my shows, and there wouldn't be that many people in the audience, and it was kind of a bummer. And I was kind of thinking, man, what can I do to make this different? You know, it's like this constant struggle.
How do you get the word out?
How do you get the word out? And so I had this idea for a web app, basically to help people find the kind of live music that they like nearby.
And that's what I want.
Right.
So that's one of the things that attracted me to you, and one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you on this show about that, because I would love that app.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's called Hooplays, and basically it does three things. It helps you find live music that you like nearby. So you can just go to the website, and it'll show you, it'll show you who's playing, but it'll show you on that very first page, are they a jazz band? Are they a punk band? Are they a pop band? So, you know, right now you just see the Flying Monkeys, and you don't know who that is, and you have to go do a web search and try to figure it all out. And by the time, you know, you've done researching all these different people, you feel like, let's just go to the movies. I don't know, you know? So it does that. The second thing it does is that it allows the audience to review the shows. And so the shows are curated so that the ones with the artists with the best reviews show up first in the results for that night set of shows.
Okay, so when you say the best, that's because the audience has chosen them.
The audience has chosen them. Okay. You know, it's not like a gatekeeper or somebody who's appointed themselves as the, you know, authority on music. Yeah, it's more of a meritocracy, and it defers to the opinion of everyday people who go see music.
Good.
Yeah, and then the final thing it does with reviews is it gives artists the opportunity to basically build a reputation that they can carry around. So, you know, if you are a local to the Bay Area and you have people come and see your shows and you get reviews, then once Hooplays moves beyond the Bay Area, and you say you go on tour to LA, then, you know, when it shows up in the LA calendar, you'll have a bunch of reviews from the Bay Area, and so people can see, oh, this is somebody that people back in San Francisco or San Jose really like.
Good.
Yeah.
So how did you go about doing this? Do you have an engineering degree?
I don't. I have a degree in international relations and political science. So I basically went online and looked up courses I taught myself a bit of programming. Stanford has this online free course, CS 106A. So I learned the basics of computer programming, the fundamentals there, and then I did a course on Ruby on Rails online and some web development, CSS, HTML, that kind of thing. And so I started it off myself, and then there was another guy on Maui, Devin, who helped me out getting it going. And then I've gotten some folks in India who I've done outsourcing with to help me bring it to where it is now.
That's excellent. So I'm looking forward to using that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to launching here in San Francisco. It's going to happen very shortly.
So with with the Hooplays, we're looking forward to that. With your music, in just the couple minutes we have left, what are your goals for your music right now?
So my goal for the new year is to book more original shows. So I've just been kind of getting my feet here, trying to earn my living, and working with Hooplays in San Francisco. I've been discovering all these great venues all over the Bay Area, and so I'm really excited to try to, make the cold calls and book myself some shows.
Well, see, I'm looking forward to learning from you where all these venues are.
Right.
'Cause I've found some of them myself, but not as many as I would like.
Yeah.
So that sounds wonderful.
Right on.
And have you made connections with other musicians in the area? Or
I have with a few. I met a guy last night. I was playing at somebody's birthday, and he, I guess he's in Walnut Creek, but he was one of the top 5 on this big talent show on TV, and that was kind of exciting. But I've met some really cool guys who busk a lot in the Mission. They're like trumpet players, and I've had some great times just like jamming on Valencia Street.
Good.
Yeah.
So did you do busking in the past?
I've done a lot of busking. Yeah.
And we should say, because a lot of people don't know what it is.
Right.
What busking is.
Busking is basically playing on the street or on public transportation, whether legally or illegally, for tips.
Right. And different cities have different laws about,
and some of the laws are enforced and some of them aren't, and you kind of,
Right. So if a musician wants to do that, they should check out what the laws are in their local area before they just run out there and try this.
Or you could go, ask for forgiveness instead of permission. It depends on your personality type.
Well, in some places you can get a permit.
Yes.
So it's worth exploring that, and then you don't get into any trouble,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
So, well, that's wonderful. I'm looking forward to seeing you in these places. And so tell me, is there anything else that you would like us to know if any of our viewers are out there trying to become a musician? What pitfalls should they avoid, or what things should they try to do?
I think it's really just buckling down and writing on a regular basis and believing in yourself, and just knowing that writing songs and creating art in and of itself has value. And if you're helping some person with your music, you're making somebody's day brighter, that's worth something. I think that there's a lot of musicians that go around feeling pretty insecure and worried, and it doesn't have to be that way. You can make your art, and feel good about that.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of musicians say that they feel like they're faking it, or they feel like a poser and such. So I think that's a very common thing, and I think that's good advice to basically just do it and have confidence in it and get out there and share it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, I want to say welcome to the Bay Area.
Thank you.
And in the last few seconds that we have, I hope that anybody watching is willing to go ahead and look at your website. What is your website?
It's ElaineRyan.ca.
Okay, ElaineRyan.ca.
And Hooplays.com.
And Hooplays.com. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Very good. So I'm looking forward to seeing those. I've looked at the ElaineRyan.ca, and I'm really looking forward to the Hooplays.
Awesome.
Thank you again very much, Elaine, for coming on the show and telling us all about it.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. So now we can just do it.
Yeah.